So by now, it's no secret or surprise to anyone that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are openly waging a war on the poor, not just by cutting funding to crucial social safety net programs that the poor rely on, but by imposing harsh requirements on beneficiaries of said programs. Now, this last week, HUD Secretary Ben Carson unveiled a new plan to fuck over the poorest Americans in the country when it comes to rent. So according to Politico's Katie O'Donnell, HUD Secretary Ben Carson on Wednesday unveiled a major overhaul of the rental housing system, proposing to increase the share of rent that low-income households must pay before receiving assistance and allow public housing authorities to impose work requirements. The proposal to reshape the way HUD helps 4.5 million people meet their rent is part of a broader Trump administration push to link anti-poverty programs to employment. Carson, who often refers to his own up-from-nothing life story as a parable for the poor and said last year that poverty is a state of mind, has long called on HUD to focus on helping people get off assistance rather than expanding the benefits it provides. The current system, Carson said on a conference call with reporters, creates perverse incentives, including discouraging these families from earning more income and becoming self-sufficient. Rental assistance recipients currently spend about 30% of their adjusted income on housing, with subsidies picking up the rest. Under the proposal HUD is sending to Congress, recipients would have to contribute 35% of their gross income or 35% of their income from working 15 hours a week at the federal minimum wage. Public housing agencies and owners, in the case of project-based assistance, would be able to establish minimum work requirements for recipients, excluding people over the age of 65 and the disabled. Under the proposal, some of the poorest tenants would see their rents triple. Every non-elderly, non-disabled household would have to pay a minimum of $150 a month in rent. Right now, the minimum amount for Section 8 housing choice voucher program and the public housing is $50. One of the reasons the administration has given for overhauling the assistance is that as rental costs continue to rise, more and more of HUD's budget is eaten up helping the same number of families. So really what this comes down to is two things. First and foremost, they think that poor people really, they should just learn to paddle their own canoe. If you're poor, just stop being poor. It's that simple. So if you don't like that we are reducing benefits, then you could do something about it. You could just stop being poor. Why haven't you stopped being poor yet, poor people? Now, second of all, the claim here is that, HUD just doesn't have the money. We don't have the budget needed to pay for everyone's rent as the cost of rent continues to increase. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. Now, could we theoretically reappropriate funds from our bloated military budget? No, we can't do that because, you see, when it comes to spending in the United States, we're not supposed to be using the tax dollars that you give to us to help people. That money is meant to kill people in the Middle East and North Africa. I mean, that's really what this is about. That's what they're saying. Because they don't want to help poor people. And what I find really interesting about Ben Carson's claim here that, as the cost of rent increases, it's getting more taxing, so to speak, on the HUD budget to, continue paying, is that he actually slashed the public housing budget just last year. So this is how he's responding to a crisis he created. Since the agency now no longer has the money to help people anymore as a direct result of him slashing its budget, well, they're going to have to reduce benefits and impose new requirements with regard to eligibility in order to accommodate their new, slimmer budget. I mean, this is Republicanism 101. You create a crisis, and then you solve that crisis by fucking over people and accomplishing what you wanted to do in the first place. It's incredibly disingenuous. Rather than just saying, we don't want to cover poor people, his excuse is that, well, we can't cover everyone. No, that's not true. And really, I mean, he's not really saying this in a veiled way. He said that these types of social safety net programs create perverse incentives for poor people to just never get off of welfare. Is he saying the same thing about the oil and gas industry who's currently on welfare? Is he saying the same thing about Walmart, whose CEO makes more than 1,000 times than the lowest employee? Walmart employees have to be on welfare because they work, but they're not paid a living wage. They still can't support themselves. Is he saying that our system of corporate welfare creates perverse incentives for these large multinational corporations to continue to take advantage of the American government and the American worker? Of course not. It's always the poor who are the ones who are evil and have to be punished when you live in a capitalistic society, because quite frankly, their lives don't matter. Ben Carson doesn't care about the lives of poor people. That's why Trump chose him for that position. Now, this announcement comes just months after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that 1/3 of American households can't afford food, shelter, or medical care. Now, you can try to chalk this up to a lack of personal responsibility, but the reality of the situation is that we live in an amoral capitalistic society where profits are always prioritized over the lives of citizens, and workers in America have and always will be exploited at the behest of large multinational corporations. And let me ask Ben Carson this personally. Ben, I thought you said that you were a Christian. Remind me again which passage in the Bible Jesus talked about fucking over the poor. Was it Deuteronomy? Was it Matthew? Where did Jesus say, "Thou shalt fuck over the poor and rob them of benefits that they rely on"? Show me the verse in the Bible where it says that, Ben. I am so tired of these hypocritical Christians, so-called Christian Republicans, who love to cherry pick their religion, but they don't want to focus on the part where Jesus said you should help out the poor. Why is that? It's not because you're a greedy, oligarchic, capitalist pig, are you? Of course not. It's because these programs create, quote, incentives for people to stay on the program. Again, I've said this before when I've talked about this, but there is no such thing as an incentive to stay on the program if you're poor. If you're poor, you want to get off of welfare, because if you're getting off of welfare, then that means you're making more money and you could support yourself and buy more things that you like. So who in their right mind would want to remain poor enough to remain on welfare? Nobody. When I was on welfare and food stamps, all I could think about was getting off of it one day and making enough money to support myself. Why would anyone in their right minds think, you know what, I think I just want to remain poor so I can continue to leech out the government? I mean, these are people who are working, who receive welfare benefits. Their tax dollars are literally funding our social safety net program, and yet you're claiming that they're leeching off the government. No, you want to know who's leeching off the fucking government? It's multinational corporations and billionaires who the Republican Party just gave trillions of dollars in tax cuts to. Now, over the next 10 years, if you make less than $75,000 per year, you're going to see your taxes go up. And guess what's going to happen as a direct result of this tax increase on the working class? They're going to need even more benefits from welfare. So, I mean, you can't complain about something that you're perpetuating. You are perpetuating poverty. The Republican Party's policies result in poverty, and they don't care. They want to kick poor people when they're already down. Shame on this disgusting, morally bankrupt party who continues to virtue signal about how they love Jesus. You don't love Jesus at all. This is a big fuck you to Jesus if you're a Republican and you support this.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.